This is the lumenography of Seed of Light, and this is the animation of Seed of Light. If you look closely, every mark is turning. And it's interesting because C is actually the symbol, the scientific symbol for the speed of light. And again, you have to remember that this is all pre-verbal, and I didn't know what it was about until long after I did it. Later on, I kind of began to see what they're about. And the animation then recalls the original motion of the inspiration. Almost a note to myself of what the original inspiration looked like. Some of them I remember for years. I can recall them and draw them for years, and others are pretty fleeting. They are meant to be seen in ambient light. We have them in our home, and they're incredibly peaceful, and that is actually the idea behind it, because there's so much projection and animation in our culture that's entertainment or jarring or meant to command your attention. And these are very subtle, they're very peaceful. They recall a flickering fire in the fireplace or a candle. And that's what they're supposed to do. They're just meant to be light in our lives, not totally distracting, but connecting with something much deeper, and that is our daily personal experience with light. What are the new symbols? What's the new iconography? You know, we've been dealing with either first century symbols that everyone knows or tomato soup cans that everyone knows now. What else? What's new? And this work really is about connecting life and light. How does life connect with light and light connect with life? How does that happen on a daily basis? Most people say it's a light in space. And what most people mean is the sunlight and the place. When I say light in space, I mean it's the head space. It's the freedom to think. It's the freedom to explore. And so the lightness of attitude, of rigidity, of boundaries, and the spaciousness of mind, I think, to me, are the two most critical factors. The light is beautiful, but the sense of excitement about what people are exploring here is really remarkable. It's important to get out and explore areas at different times of the day because different things show up. And I think there is something to be said for working through familiar areas because you see different things and you learn to look deeper. And you could tell when they maybe, were starting to get afraid and needed to move quickly. So he was trying to use the love stencil on the tree. Because everything is changing. Our thoughts are changing, the meaning of the words are changing. For example, this word private. This is a parking spot. But after we've seen the words love and disgrace, it starts to become, what is the private meaning of love and disgrace? Why is this spot private? There's nothing here. What's private and what's public? You're standing in the private space. I'm standing in the public space. Which side of love and disgrace are we on? So these are Venice in light. The show is in light, and these are Venice in light. I spend so many long hours at the computer, and as a break, just get up, taking a walk, and experience these things in the neighborhood. These two are a gallery. It's the back side of paintings, little paintings being held up by coffee cups and cups of sand. And in a curious play, the sidewalk itself becomes a painting. And someone just doodled a little funny character here, and that is its own painting. So there's all levels of art here, just like there's also all levels of the universe. The sidewalk cracks become the atomic lattice. What is the basic fabric of the universe occurs in the basic fabric of the city. Here in this simple photograph of a volleyball net at high noon. There are the grains of sand, grains of light. There's the underlying grid. There are waves. So in every photograph, there is everything. This photograph, it seems so obvious. It's a photograph of a skateboarder. What could be more Venice? It's actually a photograph of the space and of the curving lines. Again, back to the essence of the city, the essence of the universe. And he really is moving between the light and the shadow. He is just right at that edge, and this is called shredding the light. And this beach beauty culture is a photograph of the street itself. It is just a block or so off of the beach, and someone has scrawled in asphalt. But there are so many days that I go past this and there's trash in the street, or days that there's no sand in the letters. It's not always visible. The asphalt itself becomes the stars. I mean, this is the night sky. This is the Milky Way. And then we have the Earth over here. What cameras allow us to do, whether they're the iPhones in our pocket or something that takes, half an hour to set up, they allow us to really pay attention to something that captures our interest and to honor that little slice of life, that little second of life. Great. I don't ever wait for a photograph. Maybe not more than a minute or two. I will wait for someone to pass. But I don't ever wait for a photograph. I really believe that we are where we're meant to be, and I pause and pay attention to that moment. My grandfather was a photographer by passion. He shot with a Leica SL2. And my father put that camera in my hands when I was a teenager, and it was one of the greatest blessings. He unfortunately lost his sight at the end of his life, and I felt like using that camera I was seeing for him. That was a real inspiration because it was his way of seeing the world, and he did it at a time when not many people did. And I think that being a part of our family stories and growing up around the cameras and around all of his equipment just really gave it a sense of grounding and a sense of connection. So it wasn't so foreign. I think that was really important. So this is something that actually has never been seen before. These are my original ink on acetate drawings. The reason I stopped doing ink on acetate, and this is archival acetate, it's Duralar, is that the pen would change. So over the course of a drawing, the pen tip would shift, and I couldn't get the consistency that I really wanted. You can see this one very, very subtly is actually crooked. So it would literally shift. It would take about 4 or 5 hours to start shifting. But then by that point, I was halfway through a drawing, and I would need a new pen, and that would change the quality of the mark. And I wanted to use media that would not affect the artwork in any way. And that's why the glass surface of the drafting table and the consistency of the pen and the pen tip and the mark are so important. They get out of the way of the image 100%. For an artist who is used to drawing on paper and the support of the paper, the feel of the hand of the paper underneath the skin, that can affect your mark, that can affect your line. This offers no resistance, and it is like drawing on air. It's amazing, but it definitely takes a while to get used to. And I don't use any plugins for Photoshop. I write all my own actions, and I think that's really important. I just find that by writing my own actions, I am more able to capture what is in my mind's eye. And sometimes I'll get partway through a drawing and realize that the marks are not the mood of the image, and that is interesting. It will come to a point where there'll be a little bit of struggle or tension within the image that's not accurate. There's some dissonance with it. And I usually stop, step back, take a walk, go outside, really try to sense the image without whatever I might be accidentally imposing on it. And then I will try it again, and usually it comes with a different set of marks, something that maybe I hadn't been drawing in a while or had never drawn. And that's very exciting. Those points of tension and dissonance I've learned are not problems. It's something to just flow with, and that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it mysterious and keeps it fresh and new. I think art and technology have always been inseparable. I mean, oil paints were the technology of their time. Grinding the pigments were the technology. That was a part of alchemy. It's the understanding of technology as an honest art that is the important thing. It does allow extremely precise expression of inspiration, but you have to really go into great detail and mastery of the technology in order to achieve that without accident. And I take an inner mind photograph. I snap a shot in my mind of what this image that is just floated by looks like. And that sounds very woo-woo, but it really is just that simple. And that's what this work is about. It's all inner visions. You know, people used to be burned at the stake for saying they had inner visions. Lumenography is something that I developed because I had to. The images appearing as light in my mind just didn't have that quality when printed in black ink. I wanted to capture the light, and so lumenography is a photograph of pure light. It is a photograph of projected light. The projection is a projection of one of the drawings. And if you think about how your mind feels, we all, in a way, have a mental inner projector. And so it is also very symbolic to have a projector shooting the image onto our surface and photographing it. So these are medium format photographs. The shading is literally created by the edge of light. So this would be the brightest part of the projection, and the shading is the darkest part of the projection. So they are extremely high key, and they are finding the darks within the light itself. And the images come pre-verbal, and by that I mean I don't know what they're about while I'm drawing them. I just get out of the way of them and let the pen move. So this is expanding thought, and this was the very first one that I ever really got down on paper. And when I did it, it was like someone else had done it, and that was the bliss of it. I was finally able to get myself out of the way. Any of my memories, any of my experiences, any of my training, any of my art school, any of the years that I'd been painting or sculpting or anything, all just fell away. And this image was left, and I knew that it was something different. And I changed completely. I never painted again. This piece is called Valence, and if we think about our lives, you know, we have ups and we have downs, and this is really about that point of energy at that time of change in our life, and we all have so many changes every day. What about that point of energy? And so it's that valence point, that pop, and that constant energy, and even if it's a heartbeat, as small as a heartbeat and as great as the timeline of our lives. This piece is called Seminole. It is a wonderful example of the duality of the work, the polarity. So this is very male. You know, you've got the fire and kind of a traditional male symbol, but there's also female in it. There's growth and there's togetherness, but it is one single symbol. And Turning Thought was one of the first that I really noticed the strong motion in my mind. The image just spun around when I first saw it. And it's really about the idea that you can have a thought, and then, like expanding thought, an idea petals off of it, and then another idea. But then what happens if you think about that idea and its opposite? You turn it around in your mind, and you keep you keep turning it around. And I think we do this. All of our thoughts kind of spin around, but we can choose to look at them the other way. And we can choose the speed. Are they spinning slowly, or are they spinning quickly? So this piece is called Sight Path. And if you really think about an experience of looking at a painting on the wall, your eyes travel over the painting in a different way than your mind sees it. And so this is about that wonderful experience of feeling your eyes move separately from your mind, connecting the image. The marks are really in a grid, so there's a subtle grid there. This is wave lattice, and wave lattice really speaks to the atomic grid. It is the idea that light itself travels at different frequencies, and the vibration creates matter as we know it. If you envision the atomic lattice as being part of this grid, and then light flowing into the grid, that is the connection, and that's why these images are minimal, because each of these would occur at the intersections of the lines of the atomic lattice, at the intersection of ideas, of light, of everything that we know. And this is deeper. And deeper really speaks to the subtle conscious. So many ways of getting into the subconscious or the subtle conscious. Religions are about this, meditation is about this. Simply being outside and enjoying nature is about this. How do we get deeper? How do we get deeper with another person? How do we get deeper with ourselves? How do we get deeper with our work? But the beautiful thing that I noticed about getting deeper, and that I noticed in this drawing after it came, was that you get to a point of depth, but there's always another point. I really feel that it is the nature of subtle consciousness and not subconsciousness, because you can always get to a deeper, brighter point. Just as each of the works has marks that make up its whole, each of the works is a part of a greater whole. And so in a way, each of the works is a mark. I think over time, I'm thrilled. I can't wait to look back decades from now and see the greater whole of all of these pieces together, which is one reason why I work in an ongoing series. And I've been working on this series now for 7 years. Constellation captures the feeling, and this is what it's like, of the images going by, and they go by very quickly, and it is a lot of them, which is why the inner mind photograph sense is important, because it's not just capturing one image at a time. I just have to have patience with myself that I can only remember a few at a time, and that's okay. They will come back. I trust the process. My husband and I work in collaboration. It's amazing to have this blend of our areas of inspiration and expertise. He has created this incredible kinetic display, and this really captures, in a darker space, what the images are like when they come into my mind.
The first time I saw her work, I was just amazed, and it completely drew me in to this idea of light and life having this similar pattern. My background is in electrical engineering and physics, and when I did my senior thesis, I studied the way light propagates through fiber optic, and I found these beautiful patterns in the derivation of the equations. And I found that these patterns were in all places, in business, in markets. This is about the time that I met Cira. And I saw these amazing patterns in her work that were similar to things that I had seen both in light in markets, in people, in the way that we interact. There's so much mystery in our technology today as to how you get something projected on a wall. And I really wanted to demystify that, even though I knew the beauty of the mystery was in the mathematics of the lenses and the equations that went with the lenses. The lens combinations are beautiful ways of bending light. So you actually have 4 equations that work together simultaneously, and they're all linear equations. And when you change one element, the other things propagate through the other lenses, and you have something completely different. And this became a real beautiful way to work together with Cira, because I could take her images and then propagate her images through these lenses using these new LED technologies, and they're lighter, they don't require a fan, so there's not a lot of overhead. It's just very simple, straightforward technology that's actually, quite complicated, but comes out to be very simple and elegant in a way that's really intuitive to her original inspiration. And that's what we wanted to create here, was her inspiration, Sprays.
And it's just a lovely recreation of the experience, and just beautiful to see his handiwork so separate. So they are together and they create a whole experience.
And then with the crystal and aluminum sculptures, what I wanted to do was also show that scale wasn't really the issue. So we may see them as something very big, like the ocean, or we may see them as something very small, like just the pattern of, putting cream in your coffee in this beautiful way that it's moving around. It's all around us. We see it, we go, wow, that's kind of cool, but we don't let it into our psyche that there's this beautiful, moving energy field all around us, creating these patterns of movement.
These pieces are done on aluminum, though they are drastically different. They are black and they are shiny, and that is about as opposite as you can get from the very soft Japanese paper prints. They are exactly the same. The light and the dark have to have each other. You have to have shadows to see light. And this is the show image. This is duality. And this sums up all the light and dark, and all the macro and the micro, all the different essences of light that flow into this show. And so that's why it was chosen as the show image. And here is a shepherd fairy up on the side wall of the building, slightly fenced off. It's just so beautiful to see such art tucked away in these places. And just behind it is this row of trash cans waiting to go out tomorrow. And there on the side of it is the tagging from gangs and passersby, and it is just as beautiful as any of the things that I put on my digital drafting table. So the physicist Brian Greene said, "We see but a glimmer of what the universe truly is." And by exploring light in so many different media, it really gets beneath the expected perceptual level and explores what's there, what's deeper, what we pass by so quickly on a daily basis. We have incredible human eyes, but there are other amazing eyes out there in the universe, and the animals and the sea and that fly in the air. And our perception is limited to our history and our experience, and understanding that there is so much more opens up all the possibilities, but there is still so much more.